Let's go ahead and call our meeting to order. This is the final trim hearing for this year's budget and trim. So could we please start the meeting with the pledge, and I'll ask Commissioner Seal to do that. Millage rate.
Good afternoon. As Chair Ralston indicated, we're here today for the final public hearing. On September 8th, you adopted the tentative fiscal 22 millage rate at 0.8981 and the tentative budget of $127,958,246. So I'd like to just go through the slide presentation and just provide where updates have occurred. So the timeline is the same that I discussed when I was here last week, 2 weeks ago. Next slide. Millage rate history is the same. There's been no change to this slide as well. The changes in fund balance, this has got a small insignificant change. There was a correction that was made between the September 8th budget and the budget that we have for the final, but it didn't change the percentages relative to the comparison of the fund balance to the budgeted ad valorem taxes. Final millage rate, these numbers are all the same, indicating a 6.6% increase. The millage rate, as indicated earlier, and we discussed at the last meeting that the maximum millage rate allowed would be 0.8877. Just to briefly review the primary purpose for the increase, and that was to include the $1.75 million in the non-operating capital RFA, increase in the COLAs that we provide to the various programs based on their history of lapse, anywhere from 1% to 5%. That amount came out to $1,065,000. $2.5 million budgeted for future programming for new programs, and then $1 million have been budgeted for the contingency funds for a total of approximately $6.3 million. So I will turn it back over to Commissioner Ralston.
Do we have any requests for public comment? Okay. How about the board members? Do we have any comments from the board members regarding our millage rate? Seeing no lights, I'll go ahead and ask Beth to read the resolution adopting this millage rate. Resolution fiscal year 22-03, a resolution of the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, adopting the final levying of ad valorem taxes for Pinellas County for fiscal year 2022, providing for an effective date. Whereas the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, on September 22, 2021, adopted fiscal year final millage rate following a public hearing as required by Florida Statute Section 200.065. Whereas the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, held a public hearing as required by Florida Statute Section 200.065. And whereas the gross taxable value for operating purposes not exempt from taxation within Pinellas County has been certified by the county property appraiser to the Juvenile Welfare Board as $97,768,308,019. Now therefore be it resolved by the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County that the fiscal year 22 operating millage rate is 0.8981 mils, which is greater than the rolled back rate of 0.8500 mils by 5.66%. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
I call for a motion to adopt the FY22 final millage resolution. I see two
So
lights.
moved.
So moved
Second.
by Mike McCurrick and seconded. Thank you, Chief Milliken. Sarah, do you want to call on the board for the vote?
Judge Moore? Yes. Mr. McCurrick?
Yes.
Chief Milliken?
Yes.
Mr. Bartlett? Ms. Malo? Yes. Mr. Butler? Yes. Mrs. Ralston?
Yes.
And Commissioner Seal?
Yes.
This motion carries. Action 2B is the presentation of the FY22 final budget. And once again, Laura Brock, will you proceed with the final budget portion of your presentation?
Thank you. So this slide is showing the revenue budget. This has not changed from the previous presentation, and just pointing out here that our fiscal 21 budget calculated a 95% collection rate, while the fiscal 22 budget is calculating 97%. Next slide. On the final budget for the program expenditures, this is reflecting a change that we had for a correction of an error in the amount of $269,300. The total program expenses has decreased, but the available fund balance amount has increased, so it's an offset. So there's really no change to the total operating budget. Next slide. The change that occurred was for an adjustment that was made for the Children and Family Services Direction for Living program. We found that there had been a typo error in the other document that you were seeing, and we've made that adjustment accordingly. As far as the administrative, oops, I missed a slide, yes. This one has also been updated for the change that I had mentioned, but it doesn't show, we're not seeing any changes really that I needed to point out for you today. The administrative budget, we have no changes here that was presented at the initial preliminary hearing, and we're pointing out that the administrative rate for the proposed budget is 7.16%. The target for the board is 10%. Changes in fund balance, this is showing the change for the $269,300 that flowed through. So the net effect, like I said, to the total operating budget has not changed. So we're seeing here that we anticipate utilizing $6.6 million from the previous fund balance. If we in fact were to spend everything that we have budgeted in the current year, it doesn't look like we'll be spending that. We will be having lapsed money in the fiscal 21 budget, but that's at least what we've budgeted going forward. And I will leave it at that and ask for any questions or turn it back over to the chair.
Ms. Lynn, do you have any requests for public comment? No, ma'am. Okay. Then at this time, I'll check with the board to see if there's any public comment. Mr. Sherrick? All right, let's call for a motion
I motion to approve.
and
Second.
a second. Thank you.
Yeah, first, Ms. Houghton needs to read the resolution.
Yes.
That'd be helpful, okay. Resolution fiscal year 22-04, a resolution of the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, adopting the final budget for fiscal year 2022, providing for an effective date. Whereas the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, on September 22, 2021, held a public hearing as required by Florida statute section 200.065, and whereas the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida set forth the appropriations and revenue estimate for the budget for fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $127,958,246. Now therefore be it resolved by the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, Florida, that the fiscal year 2022 final budget be adopted. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
Now we call for the motion and a second.
After hearing the resolution, I move to approve.
And a second. Thank you, Chief Milliken.
Second.
All right. Sarah, do you want to call for the vote, please, from the board members in attendance?
All right. Judge Moore? Yes. Mr. McCurrick?
Yes.
Chief Milliken?
Yes.
Mr. Bartlett? Yes. Ms. Mallow?
Yes.
Mr. Butler? Yes. Mrs. Rolston?
Yes.
And Commissioner Seal.
Yes.
This motion carries. Congratulations. The staff has done a tremendous amount of work. I think we started budget presentations back in April. And so the staff has done a tremendous amount of work getting us to this point. I'm very proud of our budget. I'm proud of all of the deliberations that we had going into that. And congratulations to all who had a hand in it. And I think that's probably everybody in this room. The staff is involved. So with that, I'll ask the board members if you have any other comments before we conclude our final public hearing. I see no lights. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. And I have a second. Everybody have a good night.